What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracey, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Grit. I've got my friend Dr. Michael Berry in the studio today. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Michael was all the way episode 102, which, you know what, in my mind doesn't seem like that long ago, but as I was walking here, I'm like, oh my God, this is episode like 187, I believe. And so it's like 85 episodes that went by since then, and I feel like it was just literally like last summer or something. So it's pretty crazy. So super excited to have Michael back in the studio. In last time we had a really awesome conversation about, you know, starting entrepreneurship, meeting his wife, like finding his passion and what he's doing. And today I'm really excited to talk about some stories of impact, and just sitting here and talking, you know, especially speaking to the crowd of just entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, you know, you guys are out there making a difference. And sometimes we're just going and we're driving and we think that things are just normal. Oh, that headache. Yeah, that's just always been there. That's fine. Oh, that ache in my back. Oh, that's always been there. That's just the way it is. And today I hope to change that perspective with Dr. Berry here, of understanding that it doesn't have to be that way. And then also, as the way entrepreneurship goes, I know things have changed, and a couple things, and maybe even a name of a business has changed since the last time he's been on. So welcome to the studio. I'm glad to have you back.
Hey, thanks for having me back again. I know, like you said, under a new name for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, life is crazy. Things happen and you just got to adapt.
And I think the key to being an entrepreneur is that you have to be ready to adapt in position. And when you were on, that wasn't even in the forefront of like things that have to be done.
No. You'd never think that kind of stuff is going to happen, or just kind of upset everything. And when it happens to you, you're like, well, now what? And you can't stress about it for too long because you got stuff to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, all right, well, you have to change this. And then for me, the change was so abrupt. It had to be so abrupt. And people are like, well, what happened? Did somebody else take over? Is it a different person that owns it? What's going on? And I'm like, no, it's still me. I just, you know, things happen and I had to change it. So
yeah. So tell the audience just a little bit kind of what happened.
So was it 2022? I was just normal day of work, right? And I get some certified mail, and it was actually a cease and desist. Someone had trademarked the name that I was previously using, and my options were change the name or pay them $15,000 annually to continue to use the name. And I was like, no.
Genius on
good.
them.
Yeah,
like, cool.
Right. I'm just like, nope, that's not happening. So I opted to change my name. And just for some perspective, I had just gotten my sign outside my unit where I'm practicing. And I mean, literally it was hung for like maybe 3 weeks. It was not a long time. And I got this and I'm like, okay, all right, cool. So first step, changing the sign, gut wrenching, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't super excited about it, but again, you just have to roll with it. It's like, all right, well, what do I need to do? And you have to go through, and it's the stupid nitty gritty details that you have to worry about as well. So I'm like, all right, bank accounts, the credit cards, all that kind of stuff. It all has to change, and it has to change like right now, because otherwise things aren't going to line up the way that they need to.
It's all the little things you don't think about that you have to go back through and change.
And it takes like a month, right? You're just a month of what did I forget to change? Who do I need to update? And like with me specifically, I have to go back through and do W-9s for all the insurances that I bill to. Because it's like, hey, you know, this is what's going on. And that's a whole grueling process dealing with insurance in and of itself. That's another story.
I know we started talking about billing and like your extra in-service you have to do, your extra education you have to do right now, and like going through that stuff. It sounds so daunting to me.
It's, again, nitty gritty details, but
yeah,
it's
important.
It's important. Yeah. Pertinent information, because it's all in the details. Like somebody could be suffering from something and you have to justify treatment. And if they're coming back and they're like, well, insurance isn't paying for it. It's like, well, why aren't they paying for it? Did I mess something up when I was coding, or, stuff like that. I mean, I run into stuff all the time. They're like, oh, it's not an emergency. I'm like, what do you mean it's not an emergency? They literally got in a car accident and they're here. And sometimes it's not like that, right? So their insurance and auto insurance and all that kind of stuff plays into it. But like someone fell down the stairs and hit their head and they tumbled. And it's like, okay, they can't walk. So let's get them in here and start treating them. And they're like, my insurance isn't covering it. I'm like, wait, what? Why? They're like, they said it has to be an emergency. And I'm like, emergency? I'm like, you fell down the stairs. What classifies it as an emergency? So it's just trying to figure out how to navigate these situations for people, and just still providing the best possible care.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. But like going back, and you mentioned like all the little things you have to change. But I like how you mentioned how if we build a brand, it's like really delicate. And as you switch a name, people start wondering like, oh, did you sell it? Did you go out of business? Like what happened? And now you have this thing you've got to deal with that you were not planning on.
Yeah. I mean, and everyone does think that. And like I had someone call that was a previous patient of mine from a couple of years ago. They're like, is this still Dr. Michael Berry's practice?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, it is. And they're like, okay, good. Cause they just didn't know.
Yep.
And it's hard to get that message out. So it's like, I think it's still part of my voicemail for the office. It's like, hey, formerly known as, but I mean, I should probably change that now, but it's just one of those things. It's like, I have to figure out different ways to notify people about what's going on, because if they don't know, they don't know. They think I'd just gone.
Yep.
And it's like you said, it's delicate, right? You spend so long, because I think with that name, it was like 3 years or 2.5 years I was building that up. And then it's like, okay, clean slate now. It's like we have a totally different brand now. How do we come out on top, and how do we keep progressing?
I think like a sales mind, right? And like, I always look at ways of how can I touch my customers? How can I touch my clients? And so like stuff like that, I kind of get excited about of like, okay, now I have a reason to pick up a phone, call somebody. Hey, just wanted to let you know, this is what's going on, kind of a educational thing, but it gives you a chance to like touch your customers and stuff like that.
And that there was a lot of that.
I bet.
It's like emails, text messages, phone calls. It's like, hey, we're still here, but it's a different name.
Yeah. And it's part of the journey and the story.
Oh yeah. I mean, it definitely adds character. It's just, you got to adapt. It's all about adaptation, because never is everything going to go perfect. There's always something. It doesn't matter what field you're in or what you're doing.
Yes.
Something happens, and you can either let it destroy you or push past it and get on to the next thing, because at the end of the day, if you're going to wallow and let it defeat you, you're not going anywhere.
I love it. And I always love when somebody has like a great soundbite. I just try to shut up and let it go. Like, that is phenomenal. You gotta go. And sometimes it's the stuff like, I sit and think of the things like, you didn't plan that, right? Like you're focusing on other things. You're remodeling the location. You're doing stuff and putting your resources into building up. And then all of a sudden something out of the blue happens. But in the life of an entrepreneur, or even in just leadership period, that happens. I think of how many times I've had a team full of people and I'm trying to replace the lower people that are barely surviving or not surviving, right? And so I'm like rebuilding my team, and then my star person comes to me and says, oh, I'm leaving to go to take this better opportunity. It's like, oh man, I just had the dream team so close, right? Like this isn't what I wanted to do, but what do? We can sit and mope about it, can cry about it. But at the end of the day, how does that get us to where we want to go?
Right. You get one day, right?
Yep.
You're allowed to feel sorry for yourself for one day, but then you wake up the next morning and you got to figure it out, because that time is not a luxury that a lot of people have in these situations, especially as a smaller business owner, right? You're trying to figure out what your spot is and how you're going to better serve the community with the services that you provide. And like, I love the title of the show, right? So it's like, it's grit. It is so much grit, and you just got to bear it, and you just got to keep going. It's not easy. It's not fun sometimes.
Yep.
There's a lot of fun that goes into it, but there's a lot of there's crap that you just have to deal with, and you just got to keep pushing through it, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel, whether or not you can't see it. But one day you're just going to wake up and you're like, I have a sustainable business. It's working. I have everything that I need to be successful, and it starts to snowball and take that effect, and it starts to grow. And you're just sitting here like, I don't know what just happened, but I like it.
Well, how do you fall in love with the stuff that keeps you moving? Because that's what I think about is like, to me, there are so many pitfalls, there's so many things, there's so many risks, there's like uncertainty everywhere. If I don't go out and like build business right now, I won't have money tomorrow. You know, like it's one of those things as an entrepreneur, but I wouldn't give this up for the world. Like, what are the things that like you love about this?
It's a challenge. No one day is the same. And especially in my field, I get different scenarios that walk through the door. You never know what it's going to be. And I've had some crazy experiences, and my parents, they know all, like everything that I'm like, oh my gosh, this just happened. I don't even know what to do right now. But it's something that's so rewarding to me that I can positively affect somebody's life. And you just got to take pride in that. It's what's fun about it, right? I have this unique experience where someone comes in, they're having a lot of pain, and it doesn't matter where it's at. And sometimes we're also treating things that they didn't even come to me with. Mm-hmm. And it's unraveling that puzzle and getting that put together, because no one person's the same. Everyone has past experiences. Everyone has different things that they did throughout their life that are contributing to this pattern of pain that they're having. And sometimes we find out that, oh, they came in because of this, but this isn't okay either. A lot of times people come in for, your neck pain, your headaches, or your lower back pain, and you'll get to talking to them, and then they're like, oh yeah, I guess, I have incontinence issues. It's like, you came in for a headache, but you have incontinence. I'm like, there's one that's, they don't seem like they're correlated, right? But then it's just like, all right, so we're focusing on the wrong thing here. We're still going to take care of the headaches and get that neck pain and take care of it. But I also want to make sure that you're not having incontinence anymore. And it's stuff like that. And I've just, like, one of my things for people is I want you to do what you want to do without having to think about the next day. Oh, if I do this, if I go golf today, my back's going to hurt. So I'm going to pop 3-4 Tylenol, and then I'm going to go golf and then just deal with it ice tomorrow. And I just want to be able to facilitate that so that you don't have to. So it's like, I'm just going to go golf and be confident that you can do that.
That's awesome. How empowering is that?
It's such a blessing. I love what I do so much. And gosh, it's so much fun to work on the entire family too, because you never really know what's going to happen. I had a young woman come in. She has a new baby, and she came in for lower back pain. And it's like getting the baby in and out of the crib is painful. It hurts. And it's just like, it's keeping me from being a good mom. Sometimes they feel like,
yeah.
And then that was one situation where we get into it and they're like, oh yeah, I get headaches every day. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, it's normal. I just, I'm like, no, that's not normal. A headache every day is exhausting. How long's that been going on? And they're like, oh, I don't know. As long as I can remember. I'm like, no, like we're gonna get that taken care of, because I mean, you have X amount of energy dedicated to, I have to ignore this headache and I have to work around this headache every single day. It's a drain on you emotionally and physically as well. So it was just a nice opportunity to be like, okay, we'll take care of what you came in here for. But when we take care of the headaches, it's gonna help you in the long run as well. And it was just stripping that down. You just get more confident as an individual too. Like, these people coming in, they start feeling better in different areas than what they came in for, and they're just super happy. And I'm over here like, this is awesome. This is why I like to do what I do.
Well, and thinking of that ripple effect, and we've been talking about entrepreneurs, for example, throughout the show so far, and talking about like all the things that we're dealing with. Like, you're dealing with the sign, and you're going through all this stuff, and then add on that you have a migraine every day.
I don't even, I couldn't
You know what I
imagine doing
mean?
that.
Like,
I am so distracted by headaches and migraines when I have them. It's just like, all right, this sucks. And then you're kind of just going through the motions, and it's not really a productive day. You'll be like busy, but you won't be productive at all. And it's just like, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but then there's 6 other things you could be doing that you're not doing because it's just a stupid headache, right? But it's so draining and it's so distracting.
and like, can you really give people your best? And like, how often do you feel like you snap at people or something like that just because you have a lower tolerance because you're dealing with, again, a high pain?
Yeah. And it's when people are in pain, it's like a switch flips,
Yeah.
right? And they're not thinking as clearly as they normally are, depending on what intensity that is, whether it's a headache or it's like this sharp pain in your lower back. And it's debilitating. And even if they put on a brave face and they just go about their day, I mean, their fuse is short and they'll snap on you. And they don't, not that, and you'll know. It's like, hey, that's not normal for you. What's going on? It's like, my leg is killing me. My butt cheek into my leg. I can't. It's so much pain and it sucks. And people just live with it. They're like, oh, it'll get better in a couple days. Oh, it'll get better in a couple days. Now it's been 2 weeks and it didn't get better, and it's 10 times worse. And now I can't walk. I mean, it's frustrating as a practitioner too, to hear people like, oh yeah, usually it goes away. It didn't this time. It's been 2 months. And I'm like, dude, wow. I'm like, props to you, because that I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would have called I have colleagues all over. I would have been like, hey man, like I need you to come over here and adjust me because I can't deal with this crap, because I have a physical job, and if I'm hurting, I can't do what I need to do.
Absolutely. Like, again, as an entrepreneur, you deal with stuff because you have physical ailments and things that happen when we get sick or whatever, and you still have to go do your thing.
Yep. Oh yeah. And it's crazy. I mean, it's like, all right, cool. Like, you work for somebody else, you get sick days, you get PTO, all that kind of stuff. And as entrepreneurs, it's like, oh, I'm sick. Well, okay, cool. Sucks. Just get something to get you going, drink a lot of water and go.
Yep.
Because there's no time to think about it. You just gotta roll with it. You're like, all right, I feel like crap today, but I have to put forward 110% and make sure that I'm doing the best that I can for the people that are counting on me.
Well, because we talked about in the last episode how I think it was like first opening up and then taking a long vacation and coming back and like kind of learning that lesson that, oh man, this was during the busy time.
Yeah, that's a hard one to swallow half the time. So now it's like you learn from experiences that you've had, right? So like anyone looking forward to like Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of that. Christmas and New Year's this year, it's on Wednesday.
Oh, that's crazy.
So what do? Do you take 2 weeks off?
Yeah.
Or do you take off a day before and a day after and see how that works? Because a lot of times during that time in those areas, these holidays, right? People, they're either going to come or they're not. And like for me, this is new, right? I'm like, I don't know. We're going to try it this way. So I'm open on like Monday and Friday because in the middle is Christmas and New Year's, right? And that's back-to-back weeks. So it's like, I have to figure this out. I'll have to try it out. If it doesn't work, I'm going to take 2 weeks off next year. You know what I mean? So it's just like figuring out what's going to work and how to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, it's a lot of guesswork, but it's like being there, being there so you don't miss out on it, I guess.
It's always that fear of the unknown. It's like, did I just miss a walk-in? No, there's no way. There's no way, right? It's like, it's that thing, right? Like anytime you're closed, you're like, I'm going to lose business. But it's also about balance, because it's like, you got to take those opportunities. It's like, all right, I don't have anything on the schedule today. Do I go to work and just sit there so that I don't feel like I messed out on something? Or do I maximize that time elsewhere? So for me, I have young kids. So when I stay home from work, my kids are elated. They're happy to see me.
Yeah.
This happened to me in the summer a lot, right? I just have a day where it's just dead. And I'm like, well, it's summer. My kids are home. I was like, I can roll around on the floor and wrestle with them, or I can go sit and wait and see. And maybe someone will walk in, that like one person, maybe a couple people. It's hard. And it's more about balance. You got to think about what's really important. And as entrepreneurs, that's hard because it's like, do I spend more time with my family, or do I need to go start trying to figure out how to get leads and find that income to support my family? And whichever decision you make, you're going to pay the consequences for it. Whether you miss that walk in, or that person that was going to come in today, or you get to spend time with your kids, because you're going to miss out on one thing. And I'd rather miss out on one day of work to spend time with my kids and my family than getting the other way around, getting one customer and my kids are bummed out because they didn't see me today.
And I think that I love this conversation because I think it is a balance. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and I said this the other day in something, a lot of entrepreneurs get into it because they want that flexibility. They want to spend time with their family. And then you get busy, and then it becomes a guilt of, if I don't go in, or a fear of missing out, and then a guilt of I'm not doing enough, or I could do more. And so we shame ourselves in order to go and sit at that office and do nothing, versus clear consciously saying, you know what? I've been there at the office every day. I'm going to take today as an exception and spend with the family.
Yeah.
And then not looking back.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, you can't do that either.
Yeah. It's tough, but
oh man, it's so easy to do it. You fall right into it every time. Right. And it's like, everyone always talks about mom guilt, right? Can we talk about entrepreneurs guilt here? Like you skip an event, or you miss something, or you forget something that you had scheduled, right? And it'll eat you. I mean, and it will. It will. And if you don't think it will, and if I forgot to come today, I'd be like, oh man, well, I could reschedule, but then it's just like, it would eat at me. And I'd be texting you like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I totally wasted your time. And it's that mindset too. It's just like, if you're not doing something, you're wasting your time or somebody else's. And it's hard. It's hard to deal with that, but it's fun being supported by other entrepreneurs and being like, look, dude, sometimes it happens. Sometimes things come up. It's not part of the plan. It's never part of the plan. It's always at the most inopportune time. But you just got to adapt. I mean, you can't sit still and also expect things to happen. It's like, it's an ebb and flow. You got to roll with it and then adapt and change course and all that. And it's just like, make decisions, stand behind them, deal with the repercussions of them, because there are going to be repercussions, whether or not they're positive or negative. But don't just be complacent. Make a decision, follow it through. And if you screwed it up, whoops. But keep going. Don't just sit there and be like, all right, well, I suck and it's never going to happen. It's just like, no, this didn't work. What can I do? What is another approach? And you have to follow it through. Because if you just do a half measure on everything, you're never going to get anything done.
This is a framework that we teach in boot camp. So I do objection handling boot camp with my partner Denise Monday mornings at the Brighton Chamber in person. We do 9 to 10:30. So we had one this morning, and then we do Tuesday mornings. We just added Zoom because we had a demand of people that didn't want to drive to Brighton and wanted to still do these. But we one of the frameworks is teaching how to anchor your wins and how to learn from your losses or missed opportunities, or what didn't work, what worked and what didn't work. And we kind of changed that language too, because again, when you say, where did I fail, how did I lose, like you're saying you're chalking up a loss, but versus, like, I love how you said it, is like, what didn't work, because going through it, like, what worked, what didn't work, what did I learn? And when you can do that, you can quickly move past a loss or a missed opportunity or whatnot. on the flip side of anchoring that win, and it could be a small win, somebody answered the phone today, like something, I got out of bed, but it's like these small wins, in like anchoring them, being like, yes, like I deserve this because I showed up today. I did this work, whatever it is. And like, we spend so much time beating ourselves up for the things that we fail at. And I mentioned this because I know I've been there so many times where I've made the decision to stay at home, and then I'm sitting and thinking about the whole time my missed opportunities. And then now I've missed opportunities with my family, and I've missed opportunities at work because I might be there at the house, but I'm not present.
Right. And it happens. And it happens to everyone, because it's hard to not think about work. When you're running it, it's all on you.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that you either shut it off or be like, hey, you know what? I need to be present in this moment because this is what's important right now. Right now.
Yep.
Right? Not that like you're not at the office. You can't magically just snap over there. Right? It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, like you said, being present is so important, because just being there isn't enough. People know when you're going through the motions, but that goes for work too. Right?
Absolutely.
You can go to work and just go through the motions.
Yep.
And people notice. I mean, if I'm tired, people are like, you okay, doc?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? They're like, you don't look okay. And I'm like, gee, I mean, I'm tired, I guess. Like, my kid was crying all night, so it kept me up. But no, I'm just tired. It's okay. I'll be all right. And they're like, okay, good. You can't get sick. But it's funny. It's funny. And we might take it for granted. Just these things that we have that we can control.
Yep.
And man, we try to control them. Oh my gosh. I've done it. I try to control everything. It's like, well, this, but then this. And it's just like, it's got to go like this. And it doesn't. It just doesn't. And it's never quite pieced together the way that you think it will.
That's why I say this a lot, is like people will wait so long to be like the perfect scenario. Like, I can't start my business until this XYZ happens. We can't have kids until these things happen. And it's like, just jump off the ledge and make it work, because you're going to figure it out. It's not going to be perfect. And even if you do have it planned, guess what? You're probably going to be even more disappointed than me, because it's going to all go wrong. It's like, I love the Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
I love that one.
Like,
I love that one. And it's true. I mean, so I started when I was 27.
Yeah.
I was not planning on starting a business when I was 27. My plan was to come out of school, work for somebody, learn something for at least 3 years, and then, think about whether or not I wanted to work for somebody else or if I wanted to start my own business. Instead, I just went right into it, and it was not part of the plan. I didn't know what to do. My wife was like, hey, we're getting out of here. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, like, what does that look like? And now we went from a dual income to a single income, and then it's all on me. And I'm like, I better be good, because if I'm not good, I'm screwed.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when you said, bring up, I thought you were going to say the dad guilt or the man guilt. And I think that's a lot of times where I thought that's where you were going to go, is like, it's on me, right? Like,
right.
And especially as an entrepreneur, that can add a lot of stress to that, is like, if you're not, if things are going rough, you're like beating yourself up, and that can add to that whole whirlwind as well.
And it does. It's a guy thing. I mean, everybody goes through it. It's like, I'm the man. I need to provide for my family. I need to do X, Y, Z. And no one ever thinks about that mental toll, because we don't talk about it. None of us talk about it. And we just don't. We just bury it. Bury it. Just bury it till you can't anymore. And guess what? You shove it under the rug, and this is one of my friends, and he's going to love that I'm using this. He used to shove it under the rug. We all do. We shove it under the rug. Eventually, you run out of space under the rug, and your wife finds it, and she rips it open, or whoever, and it's just, you're laid bare, and you're just like broken. And you can't let it happen. You can't let it bottle up and get to that point. right? And this is where I have to be, a practitioner, right? It's like if you need to talk to somebody professionally, a professional that has experience in those areas, you need to do it, because getting it done before you're broken is more important than going to work. And I know that's going to be controversial, right? But if you don't take care of what's going on up here, you can't be there for anybody.
It doesn't matter what you do over here. Mm-mm. You can go put the smile on and everything else, but if you're not getting it fixed internally, it's going to be really hard to continue this over here.
Yeah, and you're just not going to be in it. You're not going to be in it and it happens a lot. You just let yourself, bit by bit, you get chipped away. You get discouraged, but you don't have an outlet. You don't have anyone to talk to, and sometimes you feel alone, and that's the worst.
It is.
Right. And it happens. And you see these guys go down this pit and they're all wound and they're like, go, 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 go. Because if they truly stop, they have to sit there and be with their own thoughts.
Scary.
It's terrifying. That whole concept terrifies them. I could not imagine that.
I heard this quote of like, my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I try not to go there alone.
It makes sense. Yeah. I mean,
that's not my quote, man. But it's like one of those things, but it's true, like if you're sitting there, like a lot of people, as you're sitting there, like the worst thing is sitting in your thoughts, because then that's where all the negative comes up and you're sitting and you're stewing in yourself. And
oh yeah. And it happens so fast. You don't even think, don't even think it. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, I forgot to do this. And then it's like, well, then that's going to affect this. And then I just messed this up. And now that's going to, and you just start picking away at yourself. And it just gets, like you said, heavy. And you can't keep up with that. If you're not doing something, if you know it's something that you struggle with, you have to take care of it, because you can't be present as a father, as an entrepreneur. You can't be there at work and giving the best effort that you can, and the quality too. Like, let's not forget about that. There is a quality component to everything.
Absolutely.
To everything. And if that quality isn't there, people notice. And whether it's because you didn't take the time to take care of your mental health and you just keep going and doing the work, but it's not the best quality, that's really going to start to chip away at your reputation.
What would you say your superpower is?
My superpower?
Yeah.
Now, you put me on the spot.
I know. I'm like,
really hard
this might be one out of the spot, because not everybody thinks about this, but I love diving in.
Gosh, now you're going to make me think over here.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, I could talk a lot all day, but...
What do you think a client would say?
That I can heal. I'm a healer. And that's... I don't even think that. I've been told that. They're like, you're a healer. And every time that they do, or anytime someone has that, makes that comment or thanks me for helping them with stuff, I'm just like, I'm just here to help. That's all I want to do. And it just makes me love my job even more. I mean, I don't even really call it a job. I do it everywhere. I don't just go to work and that's my office and that's the only place that I adjust people, right? My wife makes fun of me. She'll see me. I mean, I was just at, I went to a farm with my kids and there was a bunch of people there. And my son was right next to me. And then I was talking to someone about chiropractic and like what I do. And they're like, oh, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, well, there's a table right there. And it was just a picnic table. And then my wife's calling me and I'm like working on someone on the table. And she's like, yeah, where's Matthew? And I was like, well, he was right here. She goes, never mind, I see him. And I'm like, okay, bye. Click. I'm like, she found him. It's good. I'm fine. I'm out of the hot water. And she comes over and she sees me adjusting this guy. And she's like, of course you're adjusting somebody, because why wouldn't you? But it's like my party trick, right? I'm just like, hey, come over here. Let me, let me feel your neck. Oh man, I used to hate getting introduced at party. Oh, this is Dr. Barry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, don't do that to me, because then you get a lineup. It's like, what do you do? Oh,
I've got this problem with my neck.
Exactly. It's like, hey, yeah, I have a headache right now. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, there's an appointment open on Monday. But I mean, I like talking about it, and I really just enjoy helping people through this, right? Because we're just partnering with them to get their body under control. And at the end of the day, they just want it to work for them, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't, it's frustrating. Tell you, your body will fight against you sometimes. And sometimes it's just like, look, you need to rest, and you need to lean into that. And that is so hard.
That's hard.
I mean, I just went through it.
Yeah.
Back in September. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm having a good time. We've been hanging out for an hour, right? They came over, we're playing cards, right? And I'm just like, man, I have this pain. And I'm like, oh, I just changed my diet. It's fine. It's probably gas, right?
Yeah.
Like anybody else. I'm like, deny. And nope. And like, that's the hard part about being a doctor. So you're sitting there like, oh man, I probably have appendicitis. And it's like, no, you just change your diet. It's fine. So then we talk ourselves out of it. So about an hour in, I'm like sitting there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to text my brother, who's also a doctor. And I'm like, hey man, this is what's going on. And he like texts me back and he goes, did you do any tests? I'm like, well, no. Why would I do that? Right? So yeah, it ends up being appendicitis, and I had to take that out. And it's just like, this is not a good time.
Yeah.
But I just needed to lean into the rest that came with it. And that was, it still is, right? It's hard. It's like looking back, it's like, I didn't work for like 2 weeks, like not really. I'm like, I got some stuff done, but it's like, again, you can't force that issue either, because some of the risk factors, right? I could get a hernia. If I get a hernia, I'm out longer. So like the lifting restrictions that I have, I'm like, all right, you got to do it. Don't do anything dumb. And it happens. I pulled a trampoline yesterday. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I have a 30-pound weight lifting restriction. Let me pull this really quick. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah. But we all do it.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just like, let me just test this limit. Test the limit. Jump off the cliff. You know.
Well, because you feel fine, right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's all right. It's not. What's the worst that could happen, right? And we just do it.
What are you thinking of that? And like, you've had some of the, like your signs came like, and like pretty, immediate, like you had to get it taken care of as soon as you started feeling the symptoms. Do you ever notice, like, for people, what are some early signs that they should get in and see you before they're dealing with something where it's like, now it's an immediate concern? Oh yeah. I mean, obviously that there's like tightness, or, if you get headaches, sometimes they come on pretty suddenly.
Even if you're just getting them here and there, you want to get that addressed, because if you start getting them more and more, it gets worse and worse, and there's more for us to unpack. It's easy to say, just go in when it starts feeling uncomfortable, because everyone recognizes that there's something wrong. But the reality of the situation is there's been a state of dysfunction somewhere that has been going on for so long that now you have pain. Mm-hmm. Pain, if you're coming to see me because you're in pain, it's too late, right? Now we're going to have to unpack it. So, I mean, if you fall down the stairs and you feel fine, great. Come in, get evaluated, because you knocked something out of place. Falling is traumatic. It doesn't matter if you feel it right away. Yeah. When you were, 10 and you jump down the stairs, it's fine, right? You're usually pretty resilient, good, right? Yeah. When you're 30 and you jump down the stairs, fell, right? You fell. Yeah. It's okay. Well, I won't tell anyone.
I jumped down the stairs.
Let me just
Why'd
do this.
You do that?
Man, you hear about this all the time. It's like, oh, I tripped and I fell in the front yard. But you fell like this.
Oh, yeah.
And your shoulder went like this.
Yeah.
Your head went like that. and then you went down on your right hip, and now you're in this situation where you're like, my shoulder hurts, my neck hurts, I can't turn my head to the right, and anytime I sit down, my back hurts. You just shifted everything around.
Yep.
And it happens like that.
Just like that. It's so crazy. Like even just like as you get older and you pull a muscle, like you're moving around, you're fine, you feel invincible, and then all of a sudden you're like, feel like you're 90, and you're just like hunched over and can't move and like in pain and can't move your neck.
Nothing. You see that really good examples of that in church league softball. Let me tell you, I played this past year, and I mean, I did stupid stuff, right? And it's just like, you get these guys, they're still like, you get the 20-year-olds, right? But then there's the 30-year-olds that are like, oh, I can keep up with them.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Myself included,
Yep.
And you're like, I run so fast, until you pull a hammy and you're like, I do not run fast. That was not graceful. I fell. My knee hurts. I have a headache now. It's just, it's fun, and everyone's has a certain level of competitiveness that goes on, but without proper preparation, you end up with injury. And injury is a result of being tight. Right? Nobody stretches every day.
Yeah.
There's some people that do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
There definitely are. But injury happens because of a lack of mobility. Right? So if you're feeling tight, get it addressed. Right? It could be XYZ thing, right? Or people start to they're like, oh, my hands are falling asleep. Get that numbness and tingling. Right?
Yep.
That could be coming from so many different places. It could be coming from your neck, your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist. And the first thing that happens, people are like, oh, it'll go away. And then they wait. And then they're like, wow, I'm having trouble like holding a glass of water. So then they go and get it evaluated, and they're like, well, you have carpal tunnel, like severe carpal tunnel. And it's like, okay, so what's the recommendation, right? And, sometimes it's surgery, sometimes it's physical therapy. It just depends on the severity. I usually try to encourage people. I'm like, look, like if we work the muscle and we adjust these areas, it can help, because even if you do get that surgery, it's 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Talk to anyone that's had it, right? They're
Yep.
like, they either it helped tremendously, or if there's something else going on in the area, in the neck, shoulder, elbow, whatever, it's not going away, because it's not from the stereotypical inflammation in the wrist. So
it's almost like the vision I get of like you talking about how I just switched my diet. It could be gas. It could be thinking like, oh, it's carpal tunnel, and so I'll get the surgery, but it actually is something that's going on up here that's causing the problem.
yeah.
And it's like modern medicine is so easy to say, oh, it's carpal tunnel, let's get the surgery done.
Right. And people jump into that right away. And like whether or not they want surgery, there's people that are like, I don't want surgery. Tell me something better.
Yep.
And for me, I feel like it should be physical therapy. It should be getting that mobility back, stretching it. I don't care if you go to a chiropractor. I honestly don't. Go to physical therapy, find a chiropractor, go to yoga, do something proactively that's not as invasive, right? Anytime you go and get surgery, once it's cut, it's cut. And then that is not the time to go back and be like, all right, well, what if I do this, right? Because anytime you alter the structure of something, you're changing the function. So the stability is gone.
Yeah.
Not that your wrist isn't stable because there's muscles, but that connective tissue that was there that just got cut, there's no putting that back, right? It's gone, right? That stability, that instability is going to be there. So I always encourage people, even if it's not me, do something, because it's only going to help you.
It's huge. I've heard so many success stories of people that have avoided big major surgeries by going to a chiropractor or going to an acupuncturist or going to something that's outside of that normal. I'm going to go to the emergency room, go get the surgery or whatever it is. Get on the medication, get the drawer full of medicine.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. I mean, it's a lot of watching our grandparents and our parents, right?
Yeah.
For some of us, like for me, it's my grandparents, right? They got surgeries and had the medication, and they did okay for a long time with that. And I'm sure anyone else that's my age has seen it, right? They watch and they see the surgeries and the medication and all of that. And they're like, I don't want that. I don't want to be that. It's all tight, right?
Yeah.
You'll get the surgery and now this area is tight because they're detaching this muscle, connecting it here and pinning it down and making sure it's stable in one position. Being stable doesn't mean it moves freely.
Yeah.
It means that there's no risk of, and not even that there's no risk, but there's a lower chance of injury. So, and it's just that whole shift. Everyone's like, well, I want to do something more preventative. Let me get ahead of this. Let me take care of myself now because I don't want to be in that situation later.
Yes. Yeah, it's huge. Do what you can now to do what others can't later.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. And like, I've talked about this a lot, but I play basketball and, I'm 45 and I play better basketball now than I ever have in my life. But a big part of that is the way I've taken care of my body and stretched and worked on my hips and, just increased my mobility. And I'm seeing this huge difference of guys that would blow by me. I couldn't guard at all in the past that I'm now able to shut down. And like, there's a couple of guys, and specifically in these last couple of times I've played, that I'm like, wow, just last year, this guy was blowing by me and now he can't score on me. And this feels really good. But it's like my movement is so much better just working on that. Just think again, if I'm, taking it to another level in getting chiropractic, getting stuff done, like, cause I don't know what I look like on the inside. I was
going to say, we can increase your vertical by 3 inches.
3 inches, yes. Is my goal to dunk before I'm 50.
Yeah. I'm just like, you know what would happen if you got adjusted, right?
We should have extra speed.
Oh yeah. I always tell people I'll give them an extra 50 yards on their drive when they're playing golf.
Oh man.
Then they come back, they're like, dude, it worked. And I'm like, that's the first time.
It's the placebo effect, right?
Exactly. They're like, I'm so good now. And I'm like, hey, you know what? You're welcome.
Plant the seed. This will make you a better golfer.
But it's true. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the sentiment, right? Mobility is life-giving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Sitting's the new cancer. I mean, we've all heard different variations of it, but like you said, you're 45. That guy that was blowing by you, was he a little bit younger than you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So he's getting older, acting like you did when you were getting older, except now you know better.
Yes.
You're making sure that you are mobile. So he's slowing down and you're speeding up, and he's sitting there like, why am I getting beat by this old man? Not that you're old.
No, I'm. Yeah, I am for sure.
I'm kidding, Dad. Oh, sorry, never mind. But
no, that's my biggest pride is like going and knowing that I'm older than most of the guys, and that by the time they leave after guarding me, they're gonna go home and take a nap.
Oh yeah,
and I've had like people that I look at as like really good basketball players that like somebody will say, hey, do you want to guard him? And they'll be like, nope. Like, because they know I'm going to run their face off, and it comes down to that mentality. It's competitive, it's fun, but I'm going to run hard. But it's one of those things. I want to play at a high level. I want to play basketball until I'm in my 70s. I'm not going to play like I'm playing now. I know that age is going to catch up to me at some point, But I want to keep playing and being mobile, and I don't want to be the 70-year-old that's sitting in my wheelchair and like and so it's like I'm doing the things now, and it's like, what other things can I do in order to keep that functionality?
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny that you say that you want to be doing it when you're 70. I'm all about keeping people going, right? I want you to be playing basketball when you're 70 if that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
right. I have a guy. Mechanic. I don't know if anyone has ever talked to mechanic, the positions that they are in. Mainly because the engineers didn't talk to the mechanics. But they'll just get in super contorted positions, right? And they're just, and it's never ergonomically sound, right? You just got to move it however you can move it, and they get injured and that kind of stuff. I have a guy that's been coming in. He's just like, he goes, I want to ride my hydrofoil in the summer. And he goes, I don't feel like I can do that right now. And I'm like, well, let's do it. And I mean, we're a couple of weeks in, but he's like, he goes, I don't feel any pain. I feel pretty good. And I'm like, great. Let's maintain that. Super important.
Yeah.
And I like, just because we're talking about mechanics, we're going to break it down that way.
Yeah.
When do you get an oil change in your car?
Every 3,000 miles or 5,000 now.
Why not when the engine seizes up? It's because it's too late,
Too
right?
late.
So
Too
why
late.
are you waiting until you're in pain to address the things that are causing the pain?
Such a good analogy.
That's
Such a good
my
analogy.
favorite one. I'm gonna stick to that one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's one of those things. People just live their life and then they don't do any maintenance, right? Whether drinking water, that's a form of maintenance because you're lubricating the tissue.
Yep.
That's what we're made up primarily of water, the human body, right? So, I mean, you'd be surprised. I've had people that just like, hey, I have a question. I have this terrible headache. And I'm like, well, how much water are you drinking? And they're like, I don't know. Like, I had a glass yesterday of water. And I'm like, yesterday? How much have you had today? Well, none. I'm still drinking coffee. And I'm like, dude, drink water. Drink water. And they'll just drink water and they'll text me back the next day like, hey, I upped my water intake. And I'm like, I feel so much better. And I'm like, yeah, because water is essential to life.
Yes.
But it's things like that. Like, I know that, but I don't know how many people understand the importance of things like that.
It's so fun. It's not many. And even if they know it, we're still like, we're such funny creatures. We chase like the placebos, like, oh, I need some energy. I'm like drained for the day. I'm going to go buy a Monster or an energy drink or whatever that's, has all the caffeine and everything in it, as opposed to drinking water. I haven't drink water all day. So it's like we forget the ABCs sometimes. Right. I had this personal trainer once. I had this guy and I had a goal to get, I wanted to be the size of I wanted to look like Superman, like the new one. It was several years ago. Anyways, long story short, this trainer, I'm working out with him. We're getting good results. And then one day he approaches me and he's like, hey, I got this, basically he has steroids he's trying to sell me. And I'm like, dude, no. And then he comes back to me again. He's like, just kind of forcing it. And I was like, I told him, like, if you bring it up one more time, we're never going to work out again. I'm not going to call you again. And he did. And I literally never talked to him again. But it was like, I'm not doing the best I can in my diet. Like, you're not asking me any questions about like, what am I eating? How much water am I drinking? We're not working on the basics. And you're telling me to skip past and do this. Like, how about if I drink more water and I eat more protein? What if we do this the natural way versus like we're going to jump to a placebo to take care of it? And I just use that analogy because I think a lot of times we skip past the stuff that's common sense of like drink more water. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, and this is like such perfect timing, after the Lions game, it was like, I don't know what I did, maybe sitting on the couch or whatever, that all of a sudden I had like this, like, it's like I pulled a muscle or something. It was like shooting up my neck and I had a major headache and it was like affecting me hardcore. And I was sitting and I was going to take some Tylenol or whatever. And then I realized, I haven't drank any water today. So I drank 2 bottles of water. I downed 2 bottles of water. And then I went outside and I like stretched, I got down in like squats and was like just doing all kinds of different stretches. And immediately after, it was like my body was loose and I was hydrated and that went away.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Instant gratification. That's what we are right now.
Yeah.
Instant gratification. And you hear everyone talk about it all the time, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to work out for a month and I'm going to be able to lift 250 pounds, right? It's like, no. Like, you're going to lift for a couple of years, right? Because the stats are not in your favor. It's going to take some time.
Yep.
And so much everyone wants that one golden pill that you can take and you feel better, right? And it's not like that. And I've never said that to anyone. When I talk about my office, I'm like, I can help you. You're going to earn it. And it's because you earn it. And anyone that has come in to see me will testify, right? Like, I do a lot of trigger point exercises that are not they're not comfortable, but they yield results.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to strip it down. I'm going to strip down this area that's in dysfunction. Then we adjust, and then we need to stabilize it in that area. However you want to do it, working out, right? Physical therapy. I can always give some exercises. It's not the same as physical therapy. And everyone always, like, you get that question. It's like, well, should I go to physical therapy? Yeah. Yeah, you should. If you want this to stabilize, yeah. Because what I do is I break it down and I reinforce the stabilization needs to come from somewhere. And whether that's exercise you do at home or do with physical therapists, it's just important because it's all part of your path to wellness, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want everyone to feel good, right? No one wants to see somebody else in pain, right? That's not how we're wired. We want to feel better. So, doing that for other people in whatever way it works, right? You just gotta, I'm here to help. I want to do that. This is the best way to do it. And like I said, you earn it. I'm going to strip it down. It's not going to be comfortable, but will yield results.
It's the hard stuff that you're going to get the results out of, so that's awesome.
What is it? A diamond is formed under pressure. Right?
Absolutely.
So the more you take on, right, it'll be harder to crack, right? But
literally,
you can get it done. Yeah, right.
And like if you want to watch,
I'm all about puns.
If you want some entertainment, go to Michael's Instagram page. It's just Elevate Chiropractic, right?
Oh, see, name change. It messes with everyone. It's Conquer Chiropractic.
Conquer. Oh my God, I messed it up. I went the other way around. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Like I said, hey, that name
Conquer.
Change was not planned.
Yes. Oh my God, I was like, don't do that. And I did it. So Conquer Chiropractic. So when you go to your Instagram page, did you have all these videos where you're doing the cracking and you can see exactly what you're talking about? Going through pressure points and stuff like that. But man, it's addicting watching that.
Yeah, the ASMR content's always fun, right? That's the cracking sound. You can sometimes you can see the faces. I don't know if I include them too much. No one wants to see that, right? They're wincing in pain. No, they want to hear that felt so good.
There was one today I was watching, and the lady had her baby, and like when you were cracking, she was like, oh. It was awesome.
It's because they're looking down at their baby all day long.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man. Everyone's neck gets so tight. Mine too. Because, I got young kids and you're feeding them.
Yep.
And you're just down to the left, shoulder hiked up, down to the left, feeding them like this. And it's just like all of that is closing off this whole area. And you get tight and I'm just tingling the hands, that kind of stuff. And it's just like what I do is bring that all back, open it up, give you better range of motion so that it functions better. But then, you're not feeding your baby and you have a headache and you're tired at the same time and you're not sleeping. Now you just don't have a headache, but the rest of that stuff stays there.
You need some sleep. You need some water.
Yeah, exactly. Water, sleep, get adjusted. The key to success. This is how you master having a kid, right?
the survival kit.
It is. And it's so funny. My wife, she'll text me. She goes, I know you're at work right now, but I have a headache. I'm like, cool.
Wow, how spoiled.
What time is it? Do you want to come here or do you want to wait until I get home? I'm going to come there. She's like, I want to get out of the house. I want to get adjusted. I'm like, all right, cool. Come on out. Like, we'll get you taken care of. But she'll
not just a party trick. It's something you can do it for at home. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, my wife's good at this too. She'll be like, you need to adjust our son. And I'm like, oh, are you sure? And then I get the look. Yeah, I'm sure. Get over here and do it. Oh yeah. But then she's like, yeah, he pooped a ton. Thank you. Like that whole, I knew I was right. Yeah. I'm just glad that you know now.
Yeah. So, and tell me a little bit more about that, because we were talking about that with another baby that you had as a patient that, what does that do?
So when you think about the birthing process for a baby, doctors are concerned about getting them out, right? You have a timeline. There's a timeline, especially when the water breaks, right? You got to get them out. So birthing process for mom and for baby, traumatic experience. And we just don't think about it, but the babies lay on their back, whatever position you put them in, for all day, right? And that's fine. But when you start talking about anatomy and how everything moves, when you breathe, your sacrum or your butt bone flexes forward and backwards. So when you block that by laying on your back for a bunch of days, it's not flexing, and you get this, it's a fixation and it's not moving. Well, that sacrum is in charge of digestion and elimination. So your parasympathetic pathways come from that sacral plexus. And when it's not working the way that it should be, you're not getting gut motility. Your bowels aren't moving. You can't poop. We can vocalize that. The baby just cries, gets fussy, gets constipated, and you're like, wow, they haven't pooped in a long time. So with that baby that I had come in, it was actually the baby's aunt was like, hey, because they got regular care. They were like, hey, can you work your magic on this baby? I said, sure, why not? So it's a really funny video. I have a baby voice. And, yeah. So anyways, well, there's a baby voice. If you want to find it, go ahead. It's on our Facebook page. But so I work on this baby and we're just having fun. And you can see it on his face. He's like unsure about it. And he's not one. He's a few months old now. But yeah, he starts making faces and looking like he's going to cry. And then he's like, oh, wait, this feels kind of good. And when we got done, it wasn't like this huge exaggerated, you don't hear anything. It's like checking the ripeness on a tomato.
Yeah.
Right. It's not this aggressive movement for a baby. It's just gentle pressure. But baby goes home, goes back to mom. Mom's texting dad about, hey, he got adjusted today. And dad goes, oh, cool. Like, did he poop? And mom's like, yeah, like 4 times. And I'm like, score. We're all about the poop here. Like, oh man. So I'm just like really excited. But the whole time I'm just joking. I'm like, you're going to blow out in the car. Like, it's going to happen, but you're going to poop. And it's just one of those, we've never dealt with it. Our kids don't get constipated because they've all been adjusted within hours of being born. Mm. The first time with our oldest son, it was so funny. I didn't think my wife would be okay with it. So I did it when she was in the bathroom. And I'll never forget, she came out and I'm adjusting his neck. And she's like, and I was done. I finished and I sat down. She goes, what were you doing? I said, I adjusted him. And she got so mad. She goes, I wanted to watch. Are you kidding me? And she was so upset. So now I'm like, hey, I'm going to adjust the baby. Are you, do you want to watch? She's like, come over here, right? Because we're still in the hospital. And so I'll adjust them. And it's fun for me, but it works. And I'm just super excited that I get to do that for my kids.
So cool. You get to do that for your kids. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. It's so awesome. And we started off talking about like the things of like just living with a headache and stuff like that. And I can think of so many stories of people like just my niece just has a 1-year-old, and a couple of weeks ago he was having problems not being able to poop. And it's like, I would have never thought like, oh, let's go get him adjusted, Right.
Yeah. And most people don't.
Yeah.
And that's why I like talking about it. It's like, I'll talk to anyone about it. Right. And, it's the stuff that's exciting for me because one, it's great for the baby to be able to poop, but now they're not as fussy and they're more comfortable, and now mom can sleep a little bit more.
Yep.
And it's just these little things that maybe even myself, I don't think about the impact that it could have for somebody else. It's huge when that baby can poop and now mom doesn't have to stress out about the baby's not pooping. And like, what do we need to do? Do we need to go get laxatives? He needs to poop. And they're fussy because they're constipated and bloated and all that. And for me, it's just like, oh, I'll just do this. And then it takes care of the problem. And it's just one of those things you just don't think about. Like for me, it's like, that's my life. That's my everyday, right? I do this for people all the time. And there's people that are just suffering through it because they don't know.
Yep.
Right. And I'm so excited that we get to talk about it here because that's just more people that know.
That's exactly it.
There is another option. There's an alternative. You don't have to pump them full of laxatives to try and get them to poop or anything else, like colic too. Colic, there's issues going on in the spine that we can address that help with that. Like my kids never had colic. They don't get sick very much. Granted, they're not all of school age yet, but In the beginning, they just didn't. And we're just like, well, we adjust them. So we're just like, yeah, I mean, that's normal for us. They just don't get sick. And it's because they fight off infections better because their body's better able to adapt. It's not in this constant state of agitation where it's fatigued and not working at 100%. But it's like I said, it's my life. It's super fun for me to do it with my kids, whether or not they like it. Right now, my oldest one's like, no, stay away from me. But it's something that I'm super grateful that I get to be able to do for my family, because I think it's important for us to all do it if we can. I mean, it's only going to help you, like I said. And if you don't have to deal with that headache, even if you're having just a headache every once in a while, but those people that are having headaches every day, you give them one day without a headache and they're going to be happy.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, and you just think of the compound effect of, you talked about the baby being upset, the baby not being able to poop. Like now his mood is altered. He's fussy. Everything's agitating him. He's maybe not sleeping. Now the parents aren't sleeping. And we've talked about through this episode of like, we're being adults and entrepreneurs, or even if we have jobs or whatever is going on in our life, like we're expected to perform at we have things we have to do. We have responsibilities.
Absolutely.
That's kind of the part that comes with an adult. And then you're an entrepreneur and even more responsibilities, even more people looking at you. And if your sleep is impacted and you have your mood is altered, again, you're not delivering the best or the greatest to the world that you could be. And so just being able to help your baby, they're back in better energy, better mood, but then it impacts the parents too. So you just look at the degrees of how much impact literally you're making in the world.
That's selfish. I do it for myself, right? I don't want to sleep. But yeah, I mean, if I can do that for somebody, it makes me excited. And it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy it. And going to work, it just makes it worth it. You're changing their life, maybe not in a way that you might seem as super significant. I guarantee you it's significant to them.
Yep.
And that's the most rewarding part, is that I get to do that and it's fun for me and I enjoy it. I probably shouldn't smile as much when I'm doing trigger point, but I do. I'm like, hey, what's up? This is great. You're doing a good job. They're like, I hate you so much right now. Yeah, not so many words, not so clean. I've been called a lot of names, but at the end, they're like, that it's just because of the trigger point, right? I really am grateful for everything you do. But
it just induces the Tourette syndrome inside me.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so much fun to work on police officers, I'll tell you. I'm probably one of the only people that can beat up on police officers, and they thank me afterwards. But talk about dealing with crap, right? They got a lot of other things affecting it, but the duty belts are like 30 pounds on their hips.
Yeah.
But they're also wearing steel plates, right? The vests they have to wear, and it's so heavy. I mean, just going to work, right? That's one thing.
Yeah.
And now add 70, 80 pounds worth of stuff on your body and then still go to work. It's not easy, but they get a lot of that stress put on their back just by all the stuff that they're doing. And plus, if you've ever talked to any of them, those squad cars, not comfortable. There's more room in the back than there is in the front. So, which is funny, right?
That is super funny.
It's like, let's make them comfortable back there. They got like a queen size bed back there and they're up in the front like,
that is so funny, like clown car in the front.
Oh yeah. So,
but they remind me of something when we were out at the golf course a few months ago. Me, you, and Michael Mayernick, and you were talking about like it's when you're talking about the police officers. It made me think of like bigger guys that are they're going to the chiropractor. Not every chiropractor is made equal in the sense of if you have a smaller lady up trying to crack a big guy. I'm thinking about this.
Yeah. And I will say there have been a couple of my colleagues that just shocked me. I had one girl, she was like, I want to say like 5 foot small, right? Dude, she adjusted me very well and hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dang. I'm like, okay. Like, but it's true. Everyone has their own skill set, right? For me, obviously, I'm pretty effective in adjusting guys my size.
Yeah.
I'm not small, but it doesn't mean that I can't adjust somebody smaller than me, right? I still do a good job there. It's all about dialing it back, right, in that situation. But I get a lot of guys that are just like, man, I've been to a chiropractor before and I just struggle with XYZ, right? And I'm like, well, if you want a little extra sauce, let me know, but I'm going to do it how I usually do. And if you want more, there's room for more. And no one's asked me to use more.
Nobody's asked for more.
They're like, ooh, that was good. What's really funny is when you get them and you have someone on the table and then someone's in massage. And the person in massage is commenting and like, we can hear everything that, when they start talking about me in there, it's really funny because you hear someone on the table and you hear, ugh, and they're like, oh God, oh, felt that one. And the person in massage is like, what is he doing in there? And I'm just like, you're next.
You're next. Like the dentist drill.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, it's
awesome.
And they come out and they look at me. They're like, were you mad at them? And I'm like, no, they're just hurting today. It's okay. I don't hold vendettas. Right? I'm just like, I'm doing everything that I can. And that's basically what I do. I'm like, all right, let me sit there. You'll see me like look off into space. And I'm like, okay, if this, but then, and people are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, I've now run through 15 different scenarios and approaches that we can use on you to try and figure out how to ease you of this burden that you're having. And it happens. I try to do it when they're face down so they can't see me talking to myself. But sometimes I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, not about lunch. Right? It's like, okay, how do I do this? So, but it's a practice, which means it's constantly developing, right? So I don't know. We don't really talk about this much, and people have asked me, and I know sometimes it's hard to envision what education is like for a chiropractor, but we are required to graduate to get 250 adjustments before we graduate. So 50 of those are from peers, and then the remaining 200 are outpatient in outpatient clinics. And so I'm like, yeah, you get those. And then you go into practice and you see 250 patients in a week. So that skill development over that period of time, you go from doing 250 in like a year and a half, 2 years, right? To I'm going to do 250 in a week. And then you do more and then more. And so as you practice, your ability gets better. Yeah. And the more people that you adjust, the better you get at it. And that's truly how it happens because you're practicing every single day. So it builds on itself. And it's fun because I always tell people, I'm like, look, I'm going to be better tomorrow than I was today, but you get the benefit of that.
Absolutely. And it's continued growth. I love that. And we started talking about that a little bit ago, in the sense of like waiting for things to be perfect, or just going out and doing, and you're going to get better. I had somebody just the other day comment about how they started listening to the first episodes of the podcast and they're like, oh my God, you're so much better. Like I appreciate that. I'm glad, but it's a natural thing. You do 187 episodes and you're bound to get better. Anything that you do repeatedly over and over again, you will get better at it. It's the basketball thing. I put myself out there over and over and over again. And then I found ways to get better. Right. But I had to do it over and over and over again. Business, doing your line of work, like the more you do it, the better you're going to get, and your patients get to benefit from that.
And that's the exciting thing is that it gets better.
Yeah.
Right. And I know we talked about bringing things in that are effective in that work and that help and lead to growth, whether that's personally or in business sense as well. But you also figure out the things that can be eliminated that won't affect the long term.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, like just when you talk to somebody about building a business and they're like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And then you start trying to do all this stuff and you're like, is it working? Is it doing anything? So like the thing for me that came to mind was follow-up phone calls. It's technically supposed to be a friendlier conversation than a cold call, right?
Yeah.
You're just following up and you make that call. And for me, I worked myself up. I stressed out about it. And like, you're talking to voicemails.
Yep.
Right? People don't answer their phone anymore for anybody. So it was something that I was doing. I'm like, I need to do this. I need to do this. And I stressed out about it so much. I stopped doing it. And when I stopped doing it, I was a whole lot less stressed out about doing it, right? Naturally.
Yep.
But nothing changed. So I was like, okay, that doesn't work. Let's find something else. So then I just, you play with it a little bit and you try and figure it out. And sometimes you figure it out and sometimes you don't. But, even when you don't do the follow-up phone calls, I had somebody call me that was a patient 2 years ago, right? I'm like, oh, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
They're like, I want to come see you. And I'm like, great, I'm right here.
Yeah.
But it's not because of, for me, it wasn't because of a follow-up phone call, right? I'm just going to keep doing the things that work. And that's, for me, what works is doing what I do and doing it well. Focusing on that instead of worrying about making a phone call.
Yeah.
It's like, be present, right? Like you said.
Yeah.
Be present with the person that's in front of you because they can tell. They can tell when you're phoning it in or going through the motions. They really, and like for me, definitely, right? I'm connected to them from start to finish. My hands are on them and they can tell. They can tell your confidence, your stress, your everything. They can just feel it.
Well, and I love that because when you talked about earlier how you're a healer, and the first thing that popped in my head is that, yeah, obviously you're healing them with your hands and you're doing your treatments and stuff like that. But I would be willing to bet, knowing you as a person, that the healer goes more like it encompasses you altogether, not just what you're doing with your hands. It's not just the chiropractic work. Like, you're a healer, just being in your presence.
I get where you're coming from there. It's there's a different aspect for everyone, right? Sometimes people just want to feel like they're being heard and that's what they want, right? They're like, I want you to listen to me.
Yep.
And listen to what I'm telling you, but then also address the things that I'm telling you that are concerning for me, because that's important. And whether they just want to vent for the time that they have with me, that's fine. They're like, oh, this, that, and the other thing. That's great.
Yep.
And they need that. But it's different for every person. Sometimes they just want to pal around, chat a little bit, and just kind of joke around. But sometimes you get into some heavy stuff and there's these tension patterns that are held in the body that people don't really think about. But when you get adjusted or you get these tensions worked out, there can be what's called an emotional response. So someone will finally, this tension is gone that they've been holding on to for so long, and they'll just cry. And they're totally fine.
Yeah.
You're like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I don't know why I'm crying. But they're crying because the negative emotions around that tension are being let go. And you don't just get that by just moving bones, right? And like the adjustment is always fun, right? For me. But that, like, the hands-on portion of it too is healing. That physical contact, because they don't feel like they're alone, right? It's therapeutic. That's why massage is so amazing, because it's that skin on skin contact and that connection with somebody else. And it's so overlooked. I know it sounds a little bit off the wall, but it is so powerful. It makes you feel like you're not alone, right? And it's important for people to know that there's a community, that community feeling, right? You just want to make it so that it's warm, it's inviting, and they feel comfortable with it. These are all the little parts and pieces that go into taking care of the person and not the problem, if that makes sense.
It makes 5,000% sense. Has made me think of several guests that I've had in just conversations, but a specific guest. I had Christina Prasinski on, and Christina has a slew of autoimmune diseases, and she's a therapist for people with debilitating, whether diseases or prognosis, whatever. And her whole thing is there are so many people that go to the doctor and they're not seen or heard. They're told. They're not like, nobody's validating their concerns. They're questioning them. And she's like, especially people with autoimmune diseases, like they're like invisible diseases. So people like make them feel like they're crazy. She's like, I got to take my husband with me to the doctor, because like the doctor will literally look at him and say, like, try to get confirmation that I'm not lying, And so it's like this, like, inner like worry, this struggle that they have. And I've heard so many times, especially women that go to the doctor and they're not heard, and so I think that is so big. I think it's the difference maker.
If I went in and was like telling somebody something, this is something that has been bugging me and it hurts and it's uncomfortable for so long, and then they wrote it off, I would feel this big.
Absolutely.
And I've run into it, right? People are like, oh, I went to somewhere else, right? They went to the doctor, they went to another chiropractor, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, I mean, I went and they adjusted me and then I left, right? My knee still hurts, but they adjusted me, so it should help, right? And it's one of those things. It's like I told them my ankle or my knee was hurting, and they didn't even look at it. I would be so frustrated. I don't know how many times I'd go back to that person either, right? It's like, my neck and my back feel good, but my ankle hurts. I had a patient that was like, can we just focus on my ankle? Like, everything else feels good. I'm like, well, we'll adjust everything else, but then we'll work on your ankle. I said, okay. And he's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. Right. So it's just like, I will listen to you.
Yep.
And I will make sure that what is actually bugging you today is addressed, because if something else hurts and we don't take care of it, I'd be frustrated. It's like, what am I doing here? Right. So it's so common that people don't feel like their voice is being heard or that their concerns are being addressed. And it happens a lot. And I really try to take that extra time to be like, is there something else you want me to look at? Right. And having that repertoire with the patient too, is like, they know that they can bring something up. Right. I have people, I'll adjust them like, can you check my shoulders? Absolutely. Let's do it. Because they know that I will.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and like, even my wife, she's been to other chiropractors. Right. And she's like, yeah, my ankle hurt and they didn't look at it. She's like, you've adjusted my ankle before. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, they didn't even look at it. And I'm like, that's on them. Right. They're not listening. And she was frustrated by that. And I just don't want anyone to be frustrated like that, because you're not telling me for no reason that it hurts. So I try to always investigate, always work on it, try and help you with it as best I can.
Well, and it comes down to you being a healer, right? Working with your hands, listening. It's not just working with your hands, because you could go try to diagnose the problems you want to diagnose, right?
Yeah, it's so easy to go down and be like, well, this is what it is. We're going to do that.
Yep.
But we're not going to look at all this other stuff because this will fix that.
Yep.
Sometimes. Right? It's like, yeah, I mean, if you've ever worked on anything, it doesn't even matter what it is. It doesn't have to be a car. It could be an electronic, something. It's like, if I do this, it should fix it, right? Right? Right?
Yep.
No.
No,
never. It's like, wait, but this over here, and then that, I lost that piece. Where'd it go? It's like, time out, take a step back, look at the big picture. You have to look at the whole thing, right? There's a whole person sitting in front of you that has their own stressors, that has other issues going on. They have outside influences, right? They have kids, they have a husband, they have work, right? There's so many things that go into this person as a whole and how they're feeling. They're not just the neck pain. They're not just migraine. They're a mom with a baby that is suffering from postpartum depression and has headaches every single day and doesn't feel like they have control of their own body, and that they're just there to feed the baby, go home, clean the kitchen, do the dishes, take care of the baby, and go to bed, and then wake up, repeat the cycle. It's like, don't let them be stuck in that. And you just add not listening to them to the top of the list. Like on top of all that, I wouldn't want to go another day like that. That would suck. I mean, it would just suck. And it's not something you can run away from either, because you just get stuck in that loop, and it's a negative feedback loop, and you're just now identifying as neck pain. That's not any kind of practice that I want to have, right? You are a person, right? And there's a lot of other things that are going on in your life that you want to be able to adapt to. And when you can't adapt because you're dealing with something else in the background, this pain that you're having, it doesn't allow you to be any type of functional that you want to be, because you're like, I have this headache. Or a good example is my wife. She's just like, I have migraines. It's like, I have aura. Here's my car keys. Take me home. This was a great breakfast date. It's like, that's what it was. And that there's more than one person like that out there. Where it's like, oh, I get the auras. I have to go home. She used to be concerned about going home from work when she had auras. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to drive home from work because I'm going to have a migraine. That kind of stuff is what's going through people's minds. And they have this early indicator, thankfully, right? Because they can make a plan, but that's something that they have to think about. My wife does not think about that anymore, because she knows that we'll take care of it one way or another. She's not had like a full-fledged migraine. She'll get auras, but not the intense pain that came with it. And I'm just like, it's super exciting for me that she's like one of my greatest testimonies, right? But it's a really good example for me to really delve into the other factors that influence the people that are coming through the door.
Yep. Man, Michael, this has been so awesome. I love that. And that's a great way to finish it up, because I think all at the end of the day, it's dealing with people. And that's what makes the biggest difference ever. And I hope people listen to this and pack you out. Thanks again for coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure's all mine.